Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I am so excited about today. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Some people seem to think there's no trouble just because it hasn't happened yet. If you jump out the window at the 42nd floor and you're still doing fine as you pass the 27th floor, that doesn't mean you don't have a serious problem. I, I would want to I would want to address the problem right now. Charlie Munger, our guest today, is the Munger to many, a friend of the Culture Matters podcast, the founder of something very special. You've seen them on the show many times before. They were the first advisor. They founded the board of advisors. If you haven't listened to episode 544 of the Culture Matters podcast, what is an advisor? Get over there after this. They had a vision years ago to unite people, help them collaborate and build. And today we're going to be talking about what is a board. Mike Calhoun, Mike Drop Calhoun is here back again. Mike, what is a board?
I'll tell you what, it's not. It's not going to be you today. You're not going to be bored. This is going to be good stuff. No, the board is what your mother uses when you're young to straighten you out, to focus oneself quickly. What is a board? You know, I think you could always go into the definition. You could go to Wikipedia. You could go look up what is a board, and they're going to give you a lot of technical speak referencing building a board and how to build a board of advisors, build a board of directors, what their purposes, what their roles are they paid all this? You know what a board is? A board is, if you go way back, what people would do is they would put up a board and they would put their meal on it. It's where the Mensa term comes from.
Wow.
A board, same thing as a table. You're using a board to create a table. You ever hear the term, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, I never get asked that. Most people just assume everything. I bring everything to the table. I bring
True.
everything and
Very
everyone to
true.
the table, right? No, kidding. Um, yeah, I think the question, what do you bring to the table, comes from back in the day. You would come to the table to break bread, have a conversation, think, collaborate, discuss ideas and strategies. The board is, in a very real aspect, it's where the minds come together. It's where the minds become one. When you talk about a mastermind, well, the mastermind is, once you have the assembly at the board, the minds begin to unify, which is creating the mastermind, the unified mind, where we're all here together. So just like this table, this is a marble table, but just imagine it's a board. We prop it up. We now have a platform to meet, to eat, to greet each other, and get things done. You know, it's pretty simple. At the very beginning, the board is the place where people begin to get better and they get stronger and they plan. Now, over time, you're talking, we could be running around in our little uh, our leather gear, our skins, when we used to kill animals and we would cover ourselves in skins. We could be running around in a very basic format. People still had the board. They still had the dinner table. The board happened every night, right? There was a dinner table or a board meeting that's where the family came together. That's why that was so important. Families would stay together because they would eat together, they would bond, they would converse. This is very, very grassroots right? Where did it come from? But then, and this is my perspective, which is usually true. Um, better than what you're going to look up, by the way. Then, when you start looking at how do you leverage that type of conversation, I think businesses then begin to say, we are going to create that same leverage by designing a board, an assembly of people for a purpose. Like you have a board of advisors, you have a board of directors, but they're totally different. Actually, they're opposite. They're not even the same. A board of directors, do you know how a board of directors works for? A board of directors works for the shareholders.
Mm.
A board of directors is not, they're not there to be buddies with the CEO. They're actually there to hold the CEO and the management team accountable to the shareholders. Board of directors are there for insurance that we are going to make money for the shareholders,
Mm.
right? And it's usually a compensated, more formal environment with expectation, a little more rigid, right? The board of advisors is somebody who is there to make the CEO and management team better. They're working for them, with them, guidance, strategy, experience transfer. They are an advisory board to the individuals running the organization so that the board of directors hopefully is pleased with the performance, right? But it's like a checks and balances. Realistically, it's a checks and balances, just like a governmental system. How do we get the best outcome by supporting leadership and then holding them accountable? So think of board of directors as accountability so that we're making money. Think of board of advisors as really enriching the leadership with strategy, decision making, legal. You stack that board of advisors with absolutely the best you can possibly get.
Would you say that the board of directors is reacting then to the CEO, and the board of advisors is proacting or promoting, or like one is reactive, one is
Well, the
proactive?
board of directors is the board that is responsible for this thing to make money. They are responsible to the shareholder, right? So is what we're doing or what we are doing going to make money? Is it making money? Is it not making money? Is it costing money? Like the board of directors is much more employed and
Mm.
integrated. The board of advisors and the board of directors is going to be less people usually. Let's say, for example, half a dozen or half a dozen, 3 or 4 people, usually making big, very intimately involved and big accountability roles inside of the organization. Those, when people talk about getting board seats, that's usually what they're referring to, is getting a board seat on their board of directors so that they are responsible. They kind of sit between leadership and management, sit between leadership, management, and the shareholders for that accountability. So realistically, many times a big shareholder will want to know who's on the board or ask for a board seat if they're large
Mm.
enough. A board of advisors is going to be a larger group of people because you're usually extracting a very specific skill set or experience knowledge base. So you may have a dozen people on your board of advisors because you're looking for very specific attributes to put in your world that's going to make every decision you make better. Think about it. A lot of people think about just making money, but what if were you ever in the army? Were you in the military at all? Okay. If you were in the military, let's just say army, and you're walking across the field, you're considering every step, am I going to step on something that blows my leg off? or legs off, right? Is there a landmine that's about to take me out? See, when you're really in it, you're not just thinking, what am I going to sell today? You're thinking, what am I going to potentially protect myself from, right?
Hmm.
That board of advisors should be stacked, and many times is stacked, with the individuals that can save you, that can direct you, that, yes, obviously, how do we make more money? But you're also layering it in with protection, insurance, liability. You want a 360 scope. You want optics. You want 360-degree optics. Realistically, your board of advisors should be that for you, so you have no blind spots. So BA stands for no blind spots.
How do you break bread?
Breaking bread, there's actually an art to breaking bread. A lot of individuals want to sit at the table, novices, and just dig straight into business. Breaking bread is not about just business. Breaking bread is about getting to know that person, because you can have every agreement, every contract, every signature, everything perfectly ironed out. And that's only saying that's how it should work.
Hmm.
It's not saying how it will work. That's saying how it should work. So having the black and white put together is one thing. That's good business, because it sets you up for good performance, and it also sets you up for a good unraveling of things if things don't work. But breaking bread is the art of getting to know the person, so that even that black and white that you worked so hard on, that you made so perfect, that's only really guidelines on how it should go. It's not really how it will go many times. It's an investment in getting to know who are you dealing with on the other side, because that they will show you who they are over a long enough period of time. They're going to show you exactly who they are, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent. And the more you're able to understand the person, or the humans, the relationships that you're working with, the more you're able to get what you need out of them and be valuable to them, because you want to keep that pretty balanced, right? People don't like to be taken advantage of. They want to feel like they're getting something out of what they're investing their time in. So breaking bread, the more you're able to forge a relationship at the table with an individual that you're going to be involved with, whether it's life or business, we're talking business here, the better everything you do or decide not to do, right? You don't want those landmines. So now what you're doing is you're figuring out how to play that chess game with this person. That's what the breaking bread is all about. It's about figuring out what's sitting on the other side of the table from you. Because you don't, what I've realized as the leader, owner, founder of board of advisors is, we'll have a meeting and these people have no idea what's sitting in that room. They're looking at the little guy across the table that doesn't have the fancy suit, that's usually maybe wearing a pair of cowboy boots. You know what? Maybe he's not in perfect shape because he's been actually putting in the work. Maybe he didn't have time for a haircut before the meeting. Maybe he stayed up all night working on something to get it done, but he's still at the table. He just might not look like the guy or the girl, right? And many times stature plays into that. And they get ignored. People just don't take the time to invest in the other person, and they have no idea what just walked past them. Dude's doing 50 million a year, profiting 20%, you know, doesn't know, can't even figure out how to mitigate against the tax, giving more away than maybe most of these individuals are even making. Like, the guy's giving away more than the rest of them are even making. And he can't even seem to get their attention because he doesn't fit into what they think he or she should look like. That's why you break bread. So you know what you're dealing with. You know who you're dealing with.
Mm. The first.
But you know, I got to throw something else in there. Breaking bread is also a place. It's not just a place to invest in conversation so that you're able to get to know people and build those relationships. It's also a place for resolve. So think about this. Families eating dinner every single night. You just had it out with your wife, or you just had it out with your brother or sister or whatever. You got to come to that table. You've got to sit there. And you know what's really funny? After a good meal and all the tension has died down and emotions are now, the dust has settled, and you got to look that person in the eye across the table, across the board. You know, it's insurance that you're not going into the next day carrying that. Because, hey, if that doesn't happen on a daily basis with family, then you got a problem starting to be, to seed, and then that grows. That board meeting at the end of every day creates resolve. That board meeting maybe it's every week, every month, every quarter creates resolve. You know, a lot of people, they don't, I mean, I designed it. They don't even understand the value of resolve. They don't understand the value of accountability because nobody wants to show up and have egg on their face. So they show up with resolve and they show up. What's the high road? Because the cost of the low road is expensive. How do I take the high road? How do I do the right thing? How do I bring this person up with me?
Mm.
It's unfortunate that we get so lost in what's in it for me when you get so much more out of it when it's about what's in it for if I just bring my best to the table in every manner, my experience, my activity, my wins, my losses, my eagerness for resolve, right? You don't have to worry because everyone's going to want to be involved with you. Everyone. They're going to want what you're doing, what you're selling, they're going to want to invest in you. You don't have to worry about anything. You know why? Because what you just demonstrated is who they want to be involved in. So it doesn't even matter what you're doing.
What values are involved with resolve?
Well, wisdom and forgiveness. You know, you want to just deal on the human level. Many times we get in a right or wrong perspective. But they did this and I did that. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you effed up, maybe they effed up, maybe both of you, who knows? But if there is a wise, loving, giving, forgiving approach, right? It's interesting, that word, right? Forgiving, meaning
Mm.
you're going to put it out there and give them something that maybe isn't deserved, but so that you can both move forward.
I'm forgiving.
Yeah.
I'm for it.
No, I'm forgiving.
Yeah.
If you're forgiving, I'm forgiving too. Let's see if we can get him to be as forgiving as, right? I am for giving. You get it? What are you for?
Giving.
So weird. It's probably why we're on this podcast.
And we have Dom is wisdom.
Oh, dude, the dominator,
I mean, just
the whiz dominator.
it's a moment for us, right? Culture. So forgiving. If I'm forgiving and you're forgiving, how does that impact a board? If I'm coming
Dum,
at
da,
the table, right,
dum,
we're at the
dum,
table.
dum. Say it again.
If I am for giving and you are for giving, how can that impact or how does that impact
Well, how do you
the
lose?
board?
How do you lose? You don't lose at that point. You can't lose. So how does it impact the board? Well, you asked me the values. Let's just make sure we recap on that. Wise, a wise approach, bringing wisdom, bringing forgiveness, bringing resolve, bringing the big picture to the table, to the board, so that we can move forward. Think about in family. I mean, real family, like you're not leaving the person behind. Their family. They're going to be the brother and the mother, the daughter, the sister, the dad, whatever, forever. So if we came to the table in the manner of we've got to create resolve here because they're not going away, right? They're in this boat with us. So how do we get them to where they're an asset and we are building something better and productive together? Because if there is division, if you're divided, there's going to be an issue. There's going to be a fall. There's going to be failure. What was that last question you asked me?
How does for our forgivingness, right? You're forgiving, I'm forgiving, impact the board and the dynamic of its productivity or
Well,
lack of?
it puts away the error and it refocuses on the mission. So, okay, good, fine. That's not an issue anymore. You're forgiven. But if we get back to the mission and the vision and the focus, how are we aligning for that? Right.
Mm.
And usually that forgiveness creates a much more motivated party to over deliver, to recompensate. And now if you're doing this correctly, you're getting more out of that individual because of grace. Now and now when refocused on where is the priority, where is the win collectively, then we're going to get more from that party, because they didn't have to pay the price of their error. They'll make the investment in that future together. So all you're doing is you're taking the paying the price of you being right and them being wrong, and saying, tell you what, why don't we take that and just invest it in our forward momentum, which they would much rather do, and they'd usually double that investment in relevance to paying the price of being wrong, because that they're going to shortchange that every time.
If I have a seat at the table, how do I give? And is it giving or taking, or is it giving and accepting?
Well, again,
How does taking become?
going back to what is it an advisor and what board are you sitting at, right? So an advisor is somebody who's going to be able to bring certain elements of experience, resource. Usually it's more around experience, strategy, focus, resources, relationships. Advisors have gone through the ranks from coaching to consulting to mentor to true advisory. An advisor sits at the top of the entire stack. They're the pinnacle party that is able to be the most efficient executionary on action, right? It's almost like you put a quarter in, you get an answer out, right? And the answer is the truth because they've been there, they've done it. So if you understand what you're bringing to the table, what table or board you are sitting at, and the context of that board that you're sitting at, then you know what you're giving.
Mm.
right? Like for you, how many podcasts have you done?
In this medium, I think we're about just under 600.
Okay, so 600 podcasts. So if I were to put you on our board of directors, this is good. This is actually good. If I were to put you on our board of directors, in the podcast, your context would be different because you're on our board of directors. So your responsibility is to the shareholder. So your first question is, what are we doing here to make sure this is a good investment of resources and time? Because we can invest it into this podcast, and this podcast can get us exposure. It can get us more income, relationships, leverage, strategy. Like there's some sort of benefit. And as a board of directors, you're going to be immediately wanting to quantify what is that benefit and what is the timeline of the benefit. So as soon as we do a podcast, we might get something. As soon as, a week later, we might get something else, or maybe a value chain that stretches out years later. But you're looking at, is it best for our shareholder, and are they going to get ROI on us doing that podcast? Because I've done 600 of them, so I know how to do them wrong, and I know how to do them right, and I know how to waste time, and I know how to make sure that they make money, right? So that's why you're at that board, on the board of directors seat, and that's your lens. But if you are sitting on the board of advisors for the same company, right, with the same competency, bringing 600 podcasts to the table, we are now on a on average, formal, less formal and less intimately integrated to the responsibility to the shareholder. But now you're focused on the advisor, on the CEO, on the management team, on the individuals that are leading this, right? So you may be looking at the podcast. Well, so how do we develop out the brand? How do we develop out the personal brand? How do we develop out the corporate brand? Who can we get on the podcast to help us get more audience transfer? Like there's a different, how do we look at, your 600 podcasts? What conversations is our CEO having? You're almost coming from it from a PR, reputation management, leadership. How are we also not only inspiring the audience to be potentially involved as customers, clients, or members, but how are we potentially inspiring from a podcast standpoint our strategics, maybe even our team? Like you're beginning to look at sometimes more intangibles than necessarily a numbers-based tangible, where a board of directors has the accountability to the shareholder. You're trying to make that owner better, that founder better, that CEO better. You're trying to make that leadership team better from a board of advisors standpoint, strategy, insurance, solution speed, stuff like that. I see it more comprehensively focused on the leadership of the organization, and you're bringing 600 podcasts to the table. You know what else that brings to the table? What about introductions? Oh, well, I've had 600 2-hour long conversations with individuals. Let me make some great introductions so that we can expand our leverage, right? Our relationships, our resources, our exposure. You're getting really, like, board of advisors is getting really into strategy and relationships and leveraging your value brought to the table. Again, I would say more comprehensively. Directors, you're going to have accountability, and it's many times going to be, how are we getting that return to keep those shareholders happy? Because what are shareholders most interested in? The number going up. But the advisor on the board of advisors is also looking at, how do we get better before we get bigger, to where We have to get better before the number goes up many times, right? So you may be better off with a board of advisors before you ever get a board of directors. Think about this. I'll give you somebody write this down. If you, Jay Doran, the legend of Culture Matters, have you ever had a good idea? What about a great idea? What about an idea so good that you thought maybe it's your new thing, it's your next thing? Maybe Culture Matters is over and you're going to do something else. You're going to take everything you learned from Culture Matters and now you're doing this because it's the next phase for you, right? What would that be? Just give me a hypothetical. I'm going to write it down. Okay, fund manager. Good. Right? So you're going to build a fund, right? What's the first thing you should do? If you're really going to leverage everything you've done with Culture Matters, you would go out and you would create your top half a dozen to a dozen best relationships for the success of that fund. Those would be your board of advisors. You can't pay them. You don't even, there's nothing to pay them with. The thing is in your mind still. You don't even know what the name of it is, but you're beginning to build what I call the dream team because you're dreaming it up, right?
Wow.
You're casting the vision. Those are the ones that are going to either help you make this thing come to life. If it is living, they make sure it's breathing. If it is living and breathing, is it better? Does it have the likelihood of success? Right? So you're building that board of advisors to create insurance on the success of your vision of that thing, whether it's alive or not. So the real first step in anything being great is leveraging the experience and the relationships of your network. And if you don't have a network, then that's where you make an investment and you go get a good one. And you start investing your time. Think about this. So if you had your I'm going to write down here, big idea, right? You've got a great idea. And everybody can imagine one in their head right now. Dom's sitting here. He's like, dude, I got an idea. I've been thinking about this idea all morning. Matter of fact, I'm still thinking about it. And the more Mike keeps saying the word idea, the more I think about my idea. It's weird. Look at him. He's laughing because he knows it's true. So, would you rather have a dozen, 12, we're using number 12, of the ideal, I mean the best relationships you could possibly muster on planet Earth? And if we were Elon, Mars too, for the support of that idea, or $12 million, but you don't get the people. The 12 people or the 12 million or $1,200, $12,000, whatever, right? You have to have, in order to be competitive in the marketplace, you have to think about it. You did the quantifier on the last call or on the last podcast where you said if these 12 people had 20 years experience each, well, what is that?
240?
240 years of experience, right? Right. I can go to a bank and get 12 million, 1,200, 12,000. Like that's easy, right? Especially if I'm bringing 240 years of experience to the table around something that is a great idea. And I'm bringing, well, how many of those? So out of those 12 people, what did you say? Each one of them have a good 24 really great relationships on average. Yeah. So 24, somebody do the quick math. 12 times 24. Is that 288? It is? Okay. I just took a guess. It just came to my mind. That's experience. So now I have 208. So I have 240 years and 288 people in my network to fortify that idea, right? So that's a board of advisors. And you know what? That 12 million, 12,000, 1,200, whatever this number is over here, somebody is going to throw that money at this assembly of success. You know why? Because they can't get that anywhere else. They want to listen. Like I almost am thinking, damn, I'd invest in that myself. And I'm just looking at the piece of paper with the numbers that I wrote down on it. Right?
Wow.
An advisor is someone with the competency to bring real value in valuable categories. A board is an assembly of those individuals that bring value in valuable categories. And once you have that assembly, now you have your army and you have your down chain of years of experience, the Rolodex dynamic. I call it the Rolodex effect, right? That's the years is the multiplier.
What does it?
Oh, you know what I just thought of? Dude, time. Everybody's out of time. This is how you get your time back. This is how you, that 240, you get that 12 with the 20, and now you've got 240 years. You just bought time. You just bought 240 years of time to concentrate down into your business, your initiative, your brand, your product, your service. You just bought time. And everybody says, oh, it's about relationships. Well, you just got 288 relationships as well. So now you have time and you have the people. Who doesn't throw those fake dollar bills at time and people? If you have time and you have people, anybody will throw those fake dollar bills at it.
I have a seat at the table. And at this table,
The board.
the board, there are advisors, or those that embody the values of advisement. What does it do for me as a participant to bring those from my community to the table? What does it do for me? How am I perceived by my board? What does it do? What can that do for those that have already been at the table? What does it do for me? I'm already there. I have a seat at the table.
You're at the board of
What does it do
advisors.
for
You're at
me?
the board of directors.
Advisor. Like I'm there. I'm in the board. I'm a part of I'm a part of the board of advisors.
Really, you know this
What
guy
does it
named
do for me? Bring.
Warren Buffett? You ever heard of Warren Buffett?
You mean this guy?
Yeah. Warren Buffett. What did it do for him?
What if?
No. I'm being serious. What did it do for him? Because every one of his investors, every one of his advisors are investors. None of them got stock. None of them were given equity. They invested, right? And they are also qualified to be an advisor. So when you're invested and you want a seat at the table and you have the competency and you're bringing the value set that is meaningful to the table and you're valuable, you're there because you want to benefit the overall. You want to benefit the organization, right? Because you're invested. If you're not invested, then no one has your attention. We don't have your attention, right? So if you are invested and you are competent and you are awarded a board seat at the table and you are good enough to be an advisor, then we will listen to what you have to say because you are there to make us better, because you are in the same interest as we are. You want the organization to be better because you're an investor. We're on the same page. We're on the same team. That's what's in it for you. If you're not invested, I don't see you being highly motivated permanently through to the end when others are. You're probably if you don't invest, you're the first one to fall out. When others, if you're stacked against the ones investing, you can't compete. If you haven't made the investment, you're not bought in. You're not all in, and you're definitely not bought in because you never paid. You didn't pay the price. If you've invested, you're going to push through to the finish line so that you get your return. And even maybe it's a big win, but even if it's not a big win, you're still doing it because you want something back. You want your money back. You want half your money back. You want half your time, whatever it is. That's why you can't do it with those who are not invested. Everybody wants to say, I don't need anything. I'm a giver. You might be, God bless you, but you're not when you're stacked against someone who is invested and the fire hits. You may be the best person ever, but you're also the first person out the door on average when you have the parties that are sitting there at the table that are invested and they're in it to win it. Does that make sense?
I'm bringing my money because I want to have skin in the game. I'm bringing my time because I want to experience constructive feedback loops. I'm bringing my intellectual property because that
You're investing for the collective win. We are here to win together as a whole and individually, because if we win together as a whole, we're winning individually. You can't win as a whole and lose individually.
I have skin in the game.
Hold on. And you can't win if you didn't invest. If you didn't put anything in and we win, you can't win. You can't get anything back. You didn't put anything in. You didn't pay. You didn't invest. So,
but it's more than just money. It's I'm there.
Anything.
I'm telling the truth. I'm bringing my community. I'm bringing my network. And what am I getting in it? Because it's a formula I'm learning from you.
Well,
it's money, time, IP, energy, network, and I'm getting back. What am I getting back? A network to hundreds and thousands of years, honesty, and all of that's going to lead to capital, meaning explosion of my business, explosion of my opportunities. That's it. I'm bringing and I'm getting more. The math maths, but the math won't math if I don't bring all the things. What do you think?
The maths. That's right. So think about this. If we want to be really precise with our value markers,
what's the formula?
Yeah. So I'm going to do it right here. So if you're going to be an advisor, okay, you're going to have to make an investment of something, time, energy, money, whatever. But let's just use the most basic formats in black and white. So when somebody makes an investment, what are they usually investing? They're investing dollars, cash, money, right? So they're bringing their money or their investment. Well, hold on. If you don't pay attention. Okay, so let's back up. So actually, they're bringing their ability to pay, because that's a qualifier, but it's also an insurance that you have their attention. So they're actually paying, okay? And that means they're investing. Now, they're bringing time, because we just talked about 240 years. They're bringing relationships. See, there's a difference in just having a contact. You may have a Rolodex with a lot of people in it, but how many relationships are really in there where people will coordinate with you, right? What do you have on your screen there?
I want your feedback on this. I think it's
I saw a
there's
network at the bottom. I have that too. It's right here.
There's an inverse, dude, an
Yeah.
inverse relationship. So, okay, critique me
What's your
on
first one?
this. Is our board right here. I'm bringing something to the table.
Are you bored?
Absolutely. I'm magnanimous. I don't know.
Not even Dom's not even bored. He's sitting right here. He's still
Okay,
smiling.
there's 5 things I'm bringing in this order,
Yeah.
right? And there's 5 things I'm going to receive, and I think they have an inverse relationship. Now here it is. I'm bringing money. I'm skin in the game. I'm bringing time because my body. I'm there. I'm accountable. I'm there. I'm present. So I'm bringing energy. I'm honest. So there's intellectual property because if I'm dishonest or omit, I'm not bringing
What did you say after money?
time because I'm physically there.
Oh, time. That's what I had too. Okay,
Then
got it.
energy because I have to be present for the energy. My
What was the
intellectual,
inverse of time?
well, I'm going to say it at the end.
Okay.
Money because skin in the game. Time
Okay.
because I'm physically there. Energy because I'm present. Intellectual property because I'm honest. You talked about breaking bread, right? I'm honest. And my network, because I'm not going to bring my network if I'm not present, if I'm not honest, if I'm not there, if I didn't invest, I'm not going to bring my friends, my family, and people I want to be there, like because I'm not there. Now, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what am I getting? It's in an inverse relationship. Here it is. I'm getting backwards. I'm getting a network. I'm getting intellectual property from an honest network. I'm getting energy from a present network. I'm getting time. You said 12 times 240, but it's in that room, there's hundreds of people. So I'm getting tens of thousands of hours. And what comes after time? What comes after network, IP, energy, time? Money. I'm going to get an exponential return on my skin in the game. If I, as a citizen, am there, time, and being there and being present are different. Time, energy, presence. Like I can physically be there, but not be there. I could be there, but on my laptop the whole time, emailing things, or I could be there listening, paying attention, connecting the dots, modeling Mike's behavior, who's there, connecting the dots. So I could, and from that energy of presence, I can tell the truth. I can share my advice, my intellectual property. And then if I do that, I might actually, like you said, breaking bread, I might actually bring people to this culture because I want to. I'm trustworthy. So trustworthy people trust. They bring people. So and the inverse of that? What am I going to get from that? I'm going to get it in an inverse relationship. I'm going to get a network because there's more people. You said this on the last one. What is an advisor? There's more people in the room than me. If I'm in the room, there's 200 people. That's way more people than me. So I get the network. And if I'm there and I'm present, I'm going to get their IP. Because, right, energy, IP. If I'm present, which is energy, I'm going to get their IP. So I'm going to get the network, then I'm going to get the IP, and then I'm going to get
I think you get
energy.
so
I'm going to get even more
this is
energy from
good.
the
This is good.
IP. I'm going to
You're
get
we're
motivated. I'm going to get
yeah,
excited. Like I'm motivated. I'm going to get excited.
we're shaping the marble right now. I feel we're shaping the marble.
And
So
now I'm getting time because I got wisdom from the network and the IP, the honesty and the energy from the presence of the group. And I'm getting time, which is leverage, and I'm getting money.
well, so
I'm
let
getting
me
a
just walk
return.
through this
Okay. Yeah.
because
Almost fell out of my
I
chair.
think you're just borderline exercised true genius here. So what I have after you doing what you just did, energy, number one, they're bringing energy. That energy is in the form of interest, commitment, like they have a desire to be there. They're putting their energy into this, right? But they can desire it as much as they want. They can have as much energy and volunteerism as much as they want, but they also got to bring the transactional investment. So they're bringing their energy to the table. They're saying, I'm going to make the investment. They make the transactional investment because we all know sometimes people join a board of advisors and they don't come to the meetings. They paid, but they didn't come. So they bring
Wow.
the energy, they make the monetary investment. Then by following the monetary investment, they make the time investment of being there, right? So now they're investing their time, and at the table, once they've demonstrated their energy, created the transaction, invested their time, and we're finally here at the table, it's very easy at that point to then exchange IP. And I like the way that the intellectual property, because the intellectual property in this context becomes your experiences. It becomes your ability to process and problem solve and your own strategy and critical thinking, like that intellectual property that you're bringing to the table, that mind, you'll give that away before you will give your network away, because you only give your network away once you've determined, okay, I can trust, or I'm going to now take one of these precious relationships out of my Rolodex, and I'm going to also give that to the
Yeah,
person
I'm,
sitting
I'm
across
only going
the
to
table.
do that for those I think they're at or be above my level. I'm not going to do that for those I think are under my level.
But you're willing to do it, but it's like the last thing that gets done in the chain
Last,
reaction,
last,
right? It's
100%.
available and they're committed, but you still got to earn that once you
I
get to
think it
the
would be
table.
suspect if I do it too soon.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Because if I bring you,
That's what I
you're
told
like
Dom. You
my,
can't give everybody my phone number.
if I bring you to a
He came
party,
in the office the other day with my phone number on the back of his t-shirt. He goes, dude, I'm tired of giving it away all the time. I figure if I just put it on my t-shirt, they could take a picture, write it down.
if I bring,
He goes, Mike, I'm a connector, right?
by the way, wisdom,
I'm like, Dom, that's not how you do it, bro.
wisdom
That
means
was my phone number.
wise Dom. And there's something to this mentor mentee dichotomy that we've been exploring.
Yeah.
Something with advisor, advisee, because we haven't talked about what is an advisee yet. by the way, which I just realized, which will have to
Well,
be part
that
3.
almost requires a training program, which is why I bought BA.training, because what I've learned is
Yeah.
you can get everyone, you can inspire their energy, you can create the monetary transaction, you can get them to commit and invest the time. You can even do it with people that bring great intellectual property, and you can even get them to the point where they're willing to offer up their network and their relationships. But it doesn't mean that, think about it, once they, because you're talking about now the inverse. So
Yeah,
once
the
you're,
results.
yeah, what, because at this point right here, they're doing all of this. It's easy for them to do. The problem arises when they have to take inventory of the opportunity and what to do with it. So here, just think about it. Like if you were a plumber, it's real easy for that plumber to go fix those pipes, right? But it's a lot tougher for the plumber to figure out how does he acquire all the business in that neighborhood. If somebody calls and says, "Hey, I need my plumbing fixed. I have a leaky pipe." He can get out there with the right energy, the right supplies, take the right time, the right know-how. He can get it done. But how does he get all of the pipes in the neighborhood? Well, that's a little different story, because that takes a skill and a strategy that old plumber pants doesn't have. And that's what's happening. They very eagerly will bring the money, make the transaction, invest the time. They have great IP based on their experience, what they've done in their world, their product service platform, and they've created some great relationships, and they're willing to offer them up. But they don't know what to do with all the other parties that are doing exactly what they're doing, that are assets. You know why? It's overwhelming, because the opportunities are endless. So they they can't process it, they can't focus it many times, and they go back to thinking about themselves and how do they get, like, how do they get a very small thing done, because they're comfortable with small. It's easy to fix that pipe. It's harder to go fix all the pipes and earn all the business. So in your world, net in reverse, you call it the inverse. And the inverse, if they do all that, they're going to get the just one person sitting across here, Dom sitting across there. I'm going to get his network. I'm going to get his intellectual property, what I want of it. I've got his time, right? Like I'm getting this stuff back out of the system. It's so if I have his network, his intellectual property, he's invested the time, I should be able to turn that into real revenue, into dollars, because dollars are, if this was $1 piece of gold, right? This is concentration of all my energy and effort in the world, the monetary world, right? So I've leveraged network, intellectual property, and time to get this. This is a concentrated proof that I did all of that right.
Hmm.
Which this gives me what you just said. This money gives me economic energy to go do whatever I want to do. If I want to buy a Lambo, go on vacation, give it to charity, whatever, I have the energy that I can put back into the system, right? It's that inverse, like you're talking about. It brings us right back. My job, and this is where the breakdown is. Figuring out how, when you have 200 people sitting at the table ready to put their network on the line, contribute their IP, their time, those three things right there are what equal, in concentrated format, the money. That's where they have the issue. How do I turn all of this, all of these people's network, all of their IP, all of their time from everything they've ever done in their time, even here today, how do I turn that into money? That's where they're having the breakdown. That's my job to solve for them. And there is a training that says when you have all of this, here's what you do with it to get instead of what you have now, this, because you're bringing your concentrated version of how well you did that before you got to this table. And how do we turn it into the multiplier based on what's sitting here today? Because there's absolutely an undeniable fact that you can't bring the same ingredient. Think about it. You're bringing the same ingredients to the table that got you your version of that concentrated energy. If they're bringing exactly what you're bringing from their worlds, there's no way you can't turn it into the exact same concentrated version of that energy, right? Unless you don't know what to do with it. That's the problem. There's an art in what you do with all of that to turn it into all of this.
Checkers. Dom, I'm not. You said network, IP, energy, time. If I am valuable for Dom, I'm giving my network, intellectual property, energy, and time the best I can to help my fellow board member, board advisor.
Look, you're coming, think about it. Every one of them are bringing 5 ingredients. They're ready with their energy. They're saying, my interest and my energy, I want to put it over there. There is a energy that they would be focusing into this activity. I can't even go to the grocery store without expiring energy. I have to be careful where I put my energy. What they're saying is, I want to put my energy here.
I think it's the difference between addition and multiplication. If I am bringing all of those factors and I transact with Dom instead of Dom helping me interact with his community outside of the community, I'm not multiplying, I'm adding. So 2 + 2 is 4.
Well, where it gets interesting here, and this is what Don taught me.
Like it's a cross pollination of communities, meaning,
So look at this.
if you could draw this out.
If you have 3 people, right? Like if you're sitting at the table and you're one of them, and you've got 2 other people.
Talk a little louder so the podcast guests can hear you.
So if you're sitting at the table and you're the blue and you have 2 other people sitting there, this is like addition, right?
Yes.
This right here is like
yes,
addition.
yes. You got to look to their networks. There you go. If you're listening to this on the Culture Matters podcast, go to the YouTube.
So if you add one more person, now you had 3. You had 3, because we're dealing with hundreds of them in the network, if not thousands in the network and hundreds in the room. But now you're dealing with multiplication. There's a multiplier effect where things start to expand real quick.
Lines up? Can you draw a line? You see each one of those circles? Can you draw a line out? Just draw a line out of each circle into the ether, kind of. Just meaning start at each circle. Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. Yes. Now, put like a half circle on each of the end of the line, each one. Like a half circle. Yeah. Okay. This is where it becomes exponential. And I think this is where what can be missed.
Well,
I don't want to do business.
The ray. This is
I don't want to do
ray effect.
I don't want to do business. Yeah, I don't want to do business directly with each of those circles. I want to introduce each of those circles to my community, because each one of those circles becomes an infinite leverage. Each one of those half circles is their community. which is an exponential. So let's say they have 150 people in their lives that they know, like, and trust, and vice versa. It's 150 times 150. It's an infinite, meaning, so I don't want to do business with each one of those circles. I want to help each one of those circles with my time, intellectual property, energy, my value, my community, because they may transact with my community. I will help them do that, because if we
But
have
what
broken
I'm
brand,
saying here is the breakdown. This is my realization. The breakdown is it's easy when you're dealing with, if you just looked at the three people sitting at the table, there's no intersecting of lines. You're talking to this person, talking to that person. There's nothing happening in the middle. There's no web. But as soon as you add a fourth, there becomes a web, and there's now two more intersections in the middle. You start adding more, you add one more, you add five, you have five here. Now you've got a lot going on. You add six, you put 200 people in an environment and say to an unskilled party that doesn't know how to stack the deck and play chess with that many assets, they're going to gravitate to a one or two, or the opportunity overwhelm is so great that they don't have the energy to make the investment to figure it out. There's a program
yeah, and a
there.
very small minority of people that are not held in check will go with the path of least resistance, which would be to transact within the group, when the genius is
Because
to
they
trans.
think, yeah,
Yes,
they're
that's what
like,
I'm trying
oh,
to
that's
get
a
to.
lot of people. I should
Yeah,
just do this here. No,
they're missing the forest for the trees.
yeah,
They need to transact through the group. And
through the magnifier,
this,
through the multiplier.
yeah, it's a 200 times 200, not just 200. And that's the paradigm shift. That's where you go from if you invest $1 million into a room like that, you get 100 million back, because you didn't transact in the room. You transacted through the room. And you have 200 allies that are giving you credibility, that are giving you testimony, that are giving you ideas, that are opening up doors for you, that are doing whatever they can for you to succeed. And the misnomer would be the majority don't know what to transact, they're overwhelmed, and the minority, and it's our job to get rid of the psychopaths. That's our job. We destroy the psychopaths, because if you get 100 people in a room, two of them, three of them are psychotic, meaning
Well,
they're
it's
going to,
termites. It's termites. They're
yeah, we
eating.
have to destroy
Yeah,
them. Like,
yeah.
meaning that's why we have prisons in open cultures. We have prisons so we can protect our citizens. We
Well,
have prisons
if you think about
protect.
a board,
Yeah.
they're termites that are eating the internals of the board fibers. You
Ooh,
don't
that's
want,
beautiful.
yeah, we don't
And
want
yep, yep.
termites.
And there's by the way, the majority might start modeling that behavior because they don't know what they don't know. And it's Heraclitus comes in. If you give me 100 men, 10 of them shouldn't be here. So if we have 200 people, 200 citizens,
20
okay,
shouldn't be here,
20 shouldn't be here,
but
and they have
they're
to be
also
judged.
infecting another 20.
80 are nothing but targets. They're just going to follow some of the 20. They're waiting for leadership. They're not sure how to capitalize on the opportunity, the infinite. 9 of them are real fighters, and we're lucky to have them, for they make the battle. One is a warrior. He will bring the others back. And there you go. Mic drop, Calhoun. To protect and make sure the real fighters are recognized for their valor,
What'd
to
you say
make
the nine
sure
were?
that I'm sorry, what?
What'd you say the nine were?
They're the real fighters, and we're lucky to have them, for they make the battle. So those 18 paladins of holy light bringers are making sure, hey, there's a psychopath over here. You got to get him in prison, or, what are our values, and why do we exist, and how do we exist? And hey, how do we help the people understand we're not transacting inside of the culture? We're transacting through the culture because we're leveraging the relationships, meaning we're bringing our community to the table. They're bringing their community to the table. It's not that we can't transact. It's just that we'd rather not. We'd rather do something bigger and greater. Now, it may happen organically, sure, but the partnership's going to evolve. It won't be, oh, I have a customer in the community. It's, I
Well, let
have
me
a
ask you this.
partner within the community. Go.
Well, okay, so let's say we're partners. Let's say we're on the same team. So, do you go to work and try to sell stuff to the people on your team? The people, I mean, like, guy
Doesn't make
sitting next
sense.
to you, you're working on. Yeah, you're not selling him anything. You're
Doesn't make
leveraging him
sense.
to go to the marketplace.
Yeah, the power of what you're talking about right here is so unbelievably powerful that it's almost like someone having a nuclear bomb and not either being afraid to hit it or not know where to target it or what the consequences are. But it'll
No,
implode on
they're
itself.
swimming in their own pool. They're swimming in their own pool. They're lost in their own pool.
That visual right there is it. I mean, we could expand upon it a bit. Like if anyone's listening, go to YouTube and type this in and look at the video. Go listen to what is an advisor. And that's another part of the conversation, right? Who's actually in the
So,
room?
so the parties within the community, like you were talking about the 10% and the 80. And so what I have
Yeah,
here is
Heraclitus. I can't take the credit. Heraclitus.
okay. So you have 10% are termites to the board. 80% are targets. 9% can be real tactical fighters, and only one is the top G. So you have termites,
Let me add something
targets,
to that. It's
tactical,
very
and the
important.
top G.
This is this is where like this is the Western ethos comes in, the
Yeah.
protection of the individual. The warrior for a percentage of those 10% that shouldn't be here, one of them is Christ. Because the crucifixion represents telling the truth at the absolute cost. So for the warrior to not become a target, we need to understand why they shouldn't be here. Is it because they're right and we've become corrupt? So I mean, we have to be careful of that because is it because we've become corrupt or are they corrupt? And then if they are, why? Like, did we let them in? So did we not listen? Were we paying attention? So that's very important for the war to recognize if the warrior can keep power is well, why shouldn't they be here? Are they right? Are they right? And this is why they killed Julius Caesar, because in the Roman ethos, it was we don't want any more kings. So they he was acting like a king. He may have been a warrior, but he became corrupt. And so his brothers and sisters slayed him. So of those that shouldn't be here, a percentage of them may actually not be malevolent. They may have steered, or let's say they may be right, or they may have a point, and they may have decided to, they may be reacting to something that's missing. And that's always a possibility.
I just wrote that down.
The
That's
targets
true.
can almost come across like the targets. It's almost like that's a bad thing. It's more so of like, we're all infinitely looking for people to follow. I may have dedicated my life to be an advisor and a helper, but I'm surrounded by mentors and role models and advisor paid and unpaid. And I've got to do that or else I'm going to just become like some
Well, I
false.
think what you're referring to is being the targets are open for influence.
There you go. Well put. And it's this is fluid, right? So we don't know because we don't know, like maybe of that 80%, it could be the future, King David, saving his people. We don't know, but what we do
Are
know,
all your podcasts this evolutionary and developmental?
not yet, because I get to learn with you every time we pop on this bad boy.
Well, I mean, I was just wondering because I've started listening to your podcast.
Oh, Mike. Man, okay, so I want to tell everybody, go listen to episode 544. What is an advisor? Come back and listen to this again. Look out for what is an advisee and what is the board of advisors. Mike, what is our takeaway as you throw your paper airplane and fly into the sun? As Schopenhauer said, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. So throw your airplane.
Well, I think the takeaway is if we do this right, we leverage everything that we talked about here, all the people who are ready with their energy, they're making the investment, they're bringing their time, their intellectual property, their network, so that we get it in the inverse, right? And we learn to take the inverse and leverage it through the magnifier effect, the multiplier effect, and not going internal, but also staying with an external focus. How are we leveraging our board that's giving us the network, intellectual property, time to multiply and magnify while not behaving like a termite, right? Because if we don't use it as a magnifier and multiplier, then we default to internal termite behavior that begins to eat away and influence our targets, which we described those parties here. They're just open to influence, and we don't want termites doubling in population due to influencing those who can be targeted, right? If we do this right, we will soar to new heights, right?
I'm just trying to come up with a different term for the termite.
No, it's perfect. We're the board. It's perfect. It's beautifully specific.
You know what? I just came to mind Kafka's Metamorphosis. Kafka.
Yeah. I want to get a
You know,
T-shirt that says "Don't be a termite."
there's a book. I think it's Kafka where there's like it's a guy and he wakes up in the morning and he's a bug. And but so there's something to Kafka in this where maybe if I name the termite Stewart and Stewart has a possibility for redemption, and then he could transform into a person again. I'm okay with the meta.
Tom the termite. Well,
Yeah,
maybe,
like
yeah. Well, termites actually have larvae, right? So they have larvae, and then they turn into a
what is
termite.
that book
But
by Kafka? I'm just gonna
but
drop.
that larva is kind of like metamorphosis. They turn into a termite, and then they have bad behaviors. What if that larva was something that turned more into a butterfly?
Oh,
Because
cocoon, a caterpillar, or like a
yeah,
cocoon.
yeah, it depends on how that developmental process takes place and how are they influenced, right?
Check this out. You're gonna be blown away. So the book is called. I'm gonna screen share
I think
that
this
I
is
was
on my
coming to
phone.
mind. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Kafka's The Metamorphosis, and it's
Okay.
a book. It's where the guy is a bug. Who wakes one morning to find himself inexplicably transformed into a huge insect and struggles to adjust to his condition. The novella has been widely discussed among literary critics, the popular culture. Yeah, depicted as a cockroach. What's the premise? The plot. He initially considered, yeah, monstrous vermin. He reflects on his job as a traveling salesman and cloth merchant, which he characterized as being full of temporary and constantly changing human relationships, which never come from the heart. He sees his employer as a despot and would quickly quit his job if he were not his family's sole breadwinner. In working off his bankrupt father's debts while trying to move, Gregor finds that his office manager, the chief clerk, has shown up to check on him. Indignant about Gregor's unexcused absence, Gregor attempts to communicate with both the manager and his family, but all they can hear from behind the door is incomprehensible vocalizations. Gregor laboriously drags himself across the floor, opens the door, and he sees himself transformed into a bug. So we can learn a lot from Kafka's Metamorphosis, and I think, Mike, um, as long as those that shouldn't be here can potentially redeem themselves from caterpillar to butterfly, I think you're onto something.
But that's the program. That's I call, and BA has its own AA program, right? Where there's some rehabilitation. We don't give up on people. They just have to go through the program. We got to fix them. We got to train them. Sometimes maybe they were never trained. Maybe nobody ever loved them. Maybe nobody ever forgave them. Maybe they're hurting, so they're hurting others. Sometimes the enemy that is turned around into the advocate is the advocate that will never turn into the enemy.
Man, wasn't that Apostle Paul?
No, I just made that shit up.
Pretty sure he hated, yeah, Paul. Some theologian might be able to help us with that. That was
Oh, I thought you
profound.
were. Yeah. But it's true, because when you turn an enemy into an advocate through like forgiveness and grace, they never want to go back to that,
Hmm.
right? That's not a good place. But the advocate or the ambassador that goes the other direction, it's a whole lot easier and likely that will happen or can happen,
Hmm.
right? So why not make the investment to turn your termites into your top Gs, because the likelihood of them going away is very unlikely.
If you're listening to this episode of the Culture Matters podcast, where can they go to apply to be a part of to a board of advisors?
They can go to 100dailypushups.com. No, it's pretty easy. If you just go to boardofadvisors.com or you go to beamember.com, either one of those will get you right to where you need to be. You could always also just email the team, which is mike@boardofadvisors.com. It hits me and the team just to make sure nothing slides through the cracks.
What can they say to make sure that they go to the top of the queue for the thousands of people that are applying on a regular basis? What can stand out in
Oh,
that
and
email?
in the subject line, um, let's go to my notes here. Throw me the that's a good question.
Yeah, because
I think
there's thousands and thousands of people that I can't. This is the issue. The issue fundamentally with something as good as this is that when you have an auditorium of people, it breaks down in communication. So to get in the queue, so they get your attention, they can get involved. How do they actually stand out? Like I've been messaging some people for years, and I'm not clearly not getting them to respond on me in certain contexts, right? So how do you get them to the top of the queue? What do they need to say?
I'm looking at my notes here. That's a great question, because I almost want it to be profound. I think if we use code word BA sun ray, BA sun ray, because it's all about the magnifier effect. And I'll know that they listened to this podcast. And what they're trying to do is run their sunlight through our magnifier to create that hyperproductive laser. The BA sun ray.